Good day. You have been appointed as a facilitator, and your question might be something like, what now? This is Facilitator Training Session 1. An unknown source said that if a child cannot learn in the way we teach, we must teach in a way the child can learn. That is why you've been appointed as a facilitator to a specific learner. So let us look at that question again. I'm a facilitator. What now? The first thing you need to understand is the importance of one-on-one help in the classroom for children who are experiencing barriers to learning. I have just spoken about barriers to learning, and you might not be familiar with that phrase. A barrier to learning is anything that stands in the way of a child being able to learn effectively. A learner may experience one or more barriers to learning throughout his or her education. What kind of barriers do learners face every day? There are too many to mention in one session, and we will be looking at these different kinds of barriers and how to deal with them in future sessions. Just a few examples. Child that is struggling to write with ease might have problems with fine motor skills development. Many learners struggle with reading. Confidence, social skills, organizational skills. That's a child whose pencil is constantly missing. Attention. We have learned about ADD, attention deficit disorder, as well as attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. Abilities. Not all of us have the same abilities, and therefore, if a child does not have the ability, it is important to know, notice, and assist. Many abilities can be taught. Interest levels. Not all children are interested in maths or reading, and we need to make it fun. And many, many more. How do I find out what barriers the learner that I have been appointed to assist is challenged with? I need to take a walk in his or her shoes. I need to be able to understand, to identify with. I need to observe the learner with interest, not critically and in order to find fault, but in order to get to know the learner. I need to talk to him or her and ask questions. What are you struggling with? What can I help you with? How do you feel right now? Do you know why you are feeling this way? Try to understand why. Why is the learner acting in a certain way? But before we get started, let's first take a look at you, the facilitator. What qualities are needed for you to become a brilliant facilitator? We are not going to look at these in order to be critical, but we are going to look at these qualities that are needed so that we can work on it, continue to develop these qualities, and strengthen these qualities. First of all, we need to be unbiased. We cannot look at the child through preconceived ideas. And when we're observant, it shouldn't be in order to strengthen what we already know about the child or think we know, but rather to get to know the child for who he or she really is. Sensitive to others' feelings, sincere in words and actions. If we do not like the learner that we have been appointed to, he or she will pick up on it. They are very observant. We need to have a positive attitude and committed. When we wake up in the mornings, we should be excited about the plans we have, the dreams we dream along together with our learner. We need to be patient and have empathy. Empathy is not sympathy. Empathy means that we can feel worth because we understand why the learner is experiencing certain emotions. We need to be flexible and we have to have the ability to adjust because we might be planning a specific day, but our learner might have completely different plans, or something might have happened and your learner might have a meltdown in class, and then we need to change what we have planned. We need to have an ability to listen, really listen, not just hear what the learner is telling us, but also hear what he or she is not telling us. We need to be resourceful and creative because we need to make learning fun. We need to be an effective communicator. If we ourselves cannot express our own emotions, what we feel, why we feel that way, if we cannot explain simple tasks, we need to learn and practice. And then, of course, we must have a sense of humor and we must be fun-loving. Learning should and must and always is fun. We just spoke about an unbiased perspective. That means, how do we see our learner? Do we have lenses on that influence the way we look at this child? Have we labeled this child, or has this child been labeled? What kind of labels do we sometimes give children? We might say, this child can't. He can't read. He can't sit still. He can't listen. We might say, this child is a problem. This child has a problem. This child causes problems. This child is a bully. Oh, he or she is lazy. They don't want to work. He or she is just bad. Hyper. Now, I know that some children have been diagnosed as having ADD or ADHD, but if we label a child as hyper, what we're doing is we are actually implying that because of the ADD or the ADHD, this child cannot learn, and that is incorrect. Unfortunately, children pick up on these labels, and they many times label these learners then as losers. We might say that this child do things on purpose. They have control, they're naughty, they're spoiled, and that is why they do what they do. This child is selfish. He's never learned to share or to think about others. And so the child is uncaring, crazy. And if we say this child is crazy, what we're saying is that there's something wrong in the mind that's causing this child that acts to act this way, which means that, once again, there might not be a way around it or a way in order to help this child. Disrespectful, no morals, not able. This child is not able to learn. That is incorrect because we can never label a child as a lost case. We might say the child is uncooperative. stubborn, mean, disruptive, slow, aggressive. And unfortunately, some people even label children as stupid. And their friends in class once again pick up on these labels and call them stupid. And all these labels eventually lead to no hope. There is no hope for this child. And just to emphasize, if this is the way we see the learner that we are working with, then we're looking through a biased lens and we have given up on him or her. We've forgotten that all children have the ability to learn. I would like to take a moment to share from my own experience. I was a grade 4 teacher, and I had a child in my class who was difficult, moody, angry at everything and everyone. He constantly complained. He didn't want to work, etc. He really made my life interesting. At the end of a term, I had to write a report comment. And usually I would write something positive before I move over and give advice as to how this child can improve. As I started writing, I wrote, he needs to work on his attitude, and I realized that's not very positive. So I tried again. And I wrote, his behavior needs to improve. Then I realized that no matter how hard I thought, I couldn't think of one positive thing to say about this child. I was really trying very hard to like him. And that is when I made a decision. I decided to write on his report card what I would want him to be, what I would like to see him develop into. And so I wrote, I know that he is a kind and considerate boy. He just sometimes struggles when he feels overwhelmed. He does not need to be so hard on himself because he is smart and able to accomplish his dreams. I am glad that he is in my class. And that's not a lie, because we might be glad that a child is in our class because the child is making life easy and is causing us to smile. But we can also be glad that a child is in our class because that child allows us to grow and improve. Great was my surprise when during the holidays I bumped into his father at Spar. And his dad came rushing over and he shook my hand and he was almost in tears. And he told me that it was the nicest report comment his child has ever received. They made a major fuss about it. They showed this comment to every single family member and to friends, and they boosted their child. For the first time, he didn't get a lecture about how he needs to change and change his attitude. And you know what? To my surprise, that next term, a different child walked into my classroom. And as he tried to live up to this report comment, I could boost him even more, compliment him even more. And by the end of the year, I had a kind and considerate learner in my classroom. To add to this, I would like to mention that it is not necessary to react to everything you notice. Have you seen or heard some teachers pick on a child? Of course, when the child says, "Ma'am picks on me," or "Sir picks on me," they go, No, we don't, because they don't even realize what's happening. They would say, Johnny, sit still. Johnny, stop fidgeting. Johnny, stop talking. Johnny, where's your pencil? Johnny, have you once again not done your homework? Johnny, take out your book. Johnny, 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 the whole day long. We need to change our attitude and our response. We need to stop reacting and start responding. But what is the difference? When we react, that happens without conscious thought or consideration. We don't think about what we're doing or saying. It is based on instinct and learned behavior. We do not think about the positive or negative effect it might have on the learner. And there's very little control involved. So that is reacting. What then is responding? When we respond, we first stop and we observe. And we become aware of our reaction. Or I rather should say of how we want to react. We become aware of our emotions. And then we mindfully choose to react. Our internal reaction is still the same. We still feel irritated, frustrated, angry, but our external response will be different. We've looked at the characteristics of a good facilitator. We've looked at how we should respond rather than react, and that we should need to get to know our learner. But as a facilitator, what do we need to do? We need to remember that we are in someone else's class. And so we need to talk to the educator about his or her intervention plan for the learner. Each educator should have filled in a form called an SNA1. In this form, the educator would have identified the learner's strengths on which we can continue to build, the learner's weaknesses with which we need to assist, as well as an intervention plan, a way forward. Then, if need be, the educator and the facilitator may have a meeting with the learning support educator in order to assist them with the intervention plan. The learning support educator can help to provide intervention activities based upon the intervention plan of the educator. Lastly, we need to work with the learner and set goals for a day, a week, a month, a term, a year. Please, we need not do all of that at once. Some goals would be daily goals. Let's try and get through a day without losing our temper. Some would be weekly goals. Let's see whether you can stop walking around so much this week. Monthly goals. Let's see if you can improve your reading during this month, etc. Always remember that you and the learner that you've been appointed to assist form a team. We need to take the learner into consideration when we compile goals. The learner needs to learn to take responsibility for his or her own learning. The only way to do that is if he or she is part of a decision-making process. And learning doesn't happen to him or her, but he or she is part of learning. So how do we do that? We speak to our learners. We ask them, what are you struggling with? What do you need help with? What do you want to work on? And we guide him or her to look at more than just academics, because most learners will think that you are there just to help with schoolwork. And so they would say, I want to be better in maths, I want to be able to read better, and we need to assist them to think a little bit further than that. When we focus on more than just the academics, it is called a holistic approach. So what is a holistic approach? Holistic education takes a big picture view of learning. It emphasizes the development of the whole person, intellectually, emotionally, physically, and socially. Do you remember those barriers that we mentioned? Some of those barriers are emotional barriers or physical barriers such as fine motor skill development or gross motor skill development, or social barriers like bullying. This approach sees children as individuals with unique needs and talents and recognizes that children learn best when their individual needs are met. Have you ever heard of a SMART goal? Yes, you've heard correctly, a SMART goal. Now you might say, then is that the opposite to a dumb goal? No, SMART is an acronym. It stands for the way we need to look at goal setting. First of all, the S means that our goal needs to be specific. In other words, we will not say, I want to be better in maths. That is not specific enough. More specifically, we could say, I want to improve my mathematics results with 10%. The M is for measurable. How do I know whether I've actually reached my goal if I cannot measure it? In other words, I want to get through a whole day without losing my temper, instead of just saying, I don't want to lose my temper. So by the end of the day, you can actually see, have you achieved that goal? The A stands for achievable. We are not going to say that we want to learn to read within 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, if a child is still struggling to read, he or she will feel like a failure. And it will just help with the downward spiral that is already taking place. We want to turn that around. And so we break the goal up into smaller parts and we say, I want to learn all the short sounds within 2 weeks. By the end of a year, if I have achieved all the little goals, I will be able to read. R stands for relevant. I am not going to help the child achieve or set a goal that he or she is not interested in. So, if it's relevant to the child, if they do not have social skills, they struggle to make friends, they have friends but they fight constantly, then a relevant goal would be, I want to learn what it means to be a friend. And then, of course, time-based. Goal can stretch out for all eternity. We want to set a time frame by the end of the day, by the end of the week, by the end of the year. I want to be able to read. Lastly, I would just like to once again emphasize what lies within the boundaries of the facilitator's responsibilities and what is the class educator's responsibility. Is it the facilitator's responsibility to plan and work out classwork for the learner? The answer is a definite, resounding no. It is the teacher's responsibility. The learner works with the rest of the class. The teacher must adjust the work to the learner's level, and the facilitator will assist the learner in doing that work. To emphasize, where does the learning support educator fit in to this whole process? If the teacher, the class teacher, needs assistance with intervention activities, he or she should hand in a copy of a completed SNA1 to the learning support educator to show what he or she, in other words, the class teacher, has planned and what the class teacher needs or needs assistance with. The learning support educator will then provide that assistance. I would like to conclude session 1 by reading to you a piece that is entitled, What Children Need Most. Love, respect, to play, to have fun, to be seen, to be listened to, your presence, a hero, in other words, someone to look up to, a fostered sense of wonder, lots of hugs, once again, to play, the chance to make mistakes, encouragement to try again, room to grow, dreams, to be told yes, not always no, stop doing that, no, you can't, no, to be trusted, affection, guidance, and lastly, once again, to play. Thank you for watching this training session. I hope to see you again during session 2.